The Vanishing Roommate. It was a brisk autumn evening when I first noticed something was off. The trees outside my dorm window swayed gently in the wind, their leaves a vibrant mix of oranges and reds. The campus was alive with the energy of the new semester, students bustling around with their backpacks and coffee cups. But inside my dorm room, the air felt still, almost eerie. I had just transferred to Oakwood University, a prestigious college known for its sprawling campus and historic buildings. My roommate, Emily, was a local who had grown up in the nearby town. She was friendly, always ready with a smile and a laugh, and we hit it off almost immediately. Emily was everything I could have hoped for in a roommate, considerate, tidy, and fun to be around. But that evening, something felt different. Emily hadn't returned from her classes, which was unusual. She was always punctual and had a predictable routine. I brushed it off, assuming she was caught up with friends or a study group. As the hours ticked by and the sky darkened, worry began to creep in. By midnight, there was still no sign of Emily. Her bed remained untouched, and her side of the room was eerily neat. I tried calling her, but my calls went straight to voicemail. I sent a few texts, but there was no response. A nagging feeling of dread settled in my stomach. The next morning, Emily's absence was even more pronounced. Her textbooks and notes were still neatly arranged on her desk, and her favorite coffee mug sat untouched. I decided to visit the campus security office to report her missing, but they assured me that she was probably just staying with friends or had gone home for the weekend. Days turned into a week, and there was still no sign of Emily. Her family and friends were just as worried as I was. The police got involved, and soon, the entire campus was buzzing with rumors and speculation. Posters with Emily's picture were plastered everywhere, and search parties combed through the surrounding areas, but there was no trace of her. One evening, as I sat alone in our dorm room, I noticed something strange. Emily's laptop was still on her desk, and the screen was slightly ajar. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. To my surprise, it wasn't locked. Her desktop was cluttered with files and folders, but one folder caught my eye. It was labeled Secret. My heart pounded as I clicked on it. Inside, there were dozens of documents and photos. The photos were of Emily, but they were taken from strange angles, almost like someone had been watching her. The documents contained detailed notes about her daily routine, her classes, and even her friends. There were maps of the campus with certain locations circled and marked. A chill ran down my spine as I realized that someone had been stalking Emily. The more I delved into the folder, the more sinister it became. There were emails from an unknown sender, filled with cryptic messages and threats. It became clear that Emily had been living in fear, and she hadn't told anyone. My mind raced as I tried to piece together what had happened. Why hadn't Emily confided in me or anyone else? Who was behind this, and what had they done to her? As I sat there, staring at the screen, I felt a presence behind me. I turned quickly, but the room was empty. The feeling of being watched lingered, and I couldn't shake the sense of dread that had settled over me. Emily's disappearance was more than just a missing person case. There was something much darker at play, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As the days passed, I became increasingly paranoid. I started to notice shadows moving in the corners of my vision and strange noises in the night. I couldn't trust anyone, and every time I thought I was getting closer to finding out what happened to Emily, another piece of the puzzle would fall into place, leading me deeper into the mystery. But I had no idea that the real horror was just beginning, and that the sinister secret behind Emily's disappearance was more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. My investigation into Emily's disappearance consumed me. I spent hours each night going through her laptop, searching for clues that might lead me to her. The emails from the unknown sender were the most disturbing. They were filled with cryptic messages, each one more threatening than the last. "You're not alone," one email read. "We are always watching. Leave now, or you will regret it," said another. I felt a chill every time I read them. Who was sending these messages, and why were they targeting Emily? The fear in her eyes in some of the candid photos I found spoke volumes. She had been living a nightmare, and no one had known. Determined to uncover the truth, I started visiting the locations marked on the campus maps. The library, the science building, the old clock tower, each place held a piece of the puzzle. I spoke to Emily's friends, professors, and even the janitors, hoping someone had seen or heard something unusual. But no one had any useful information. One night, while searching through Emily's laptop again, I found a video file hidden deep within a series of nested folders. My hands trembled as I clicked on it. The screen flickered to life, showing Emily sitting at her desk, speaking directly to the camera. If you're watching this, it means something has happened to me, she began, her voice shaking. I don't know who is after me, but I feel like I'm constantly being watched. I can't trust anyone. If I disappear, please don't stop looking for me. There's something sinister going on, and I need your help to find out what it is. Tears welled up in my eyes as I watched her plea for help. Emily had known she was in danger, and she had left this message as a last resort. The video ended abruptly, leaving me with more questions than answers. Who had been watching her? And why? I decided to follow the one lead I hadn't yet explored, the abandoned building on the edge of campus. It was a place students rarely went, rumored to be haunted. The thought of going there alone terrified me, but I had to do it. I had to find out what had happened to Emily. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of determination, I made my way to the building late one night. The air was cold and still, and the campus was eerily quiet. The old building loomed ahead, its dark windows like eyes watching me approach. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the floorboards creaked under my weight. I shone my flashlight around, revealing old furniture, broken glass, and graffiti-covered walls. My heart pounded in my chest as I moved deeper into the building, searching for any sign of Emily. In one of the back rooms, I found a small, makeshift living space. There was a mattress on the floor, a few personal items, and a stack of notebooks. I picked up one of the notebooks and flipped through it, my eyes widening as I read the contents. The notebook was filled with detailed notes about Emily's life, just like the documents on her laptop. But these notes were different, they were written from the perspective of someone obsessed with her. The entries were filled with anger, jealousy, and an unsettling level of detail about her daily activities. As I read through the notebook, a sense of dread washed over me. The person who had written these notes had been watching Emily for a long time, and their obsession had turned dangerous. I realized with a sinking feeling that Emily's stalker had been closer than anyone had suspected. A sudden noise behind me made me jump. I turned, shining my flashlight into the darkness, but saw nothing. My mind raced with thoughts of what could be lurking in the shadows. I needed to get out of there, but I couldn't leave without finding out more. I picked up the other notebooks and started to leave the room when I heard footsteps. They were slow and deliberate, getting closer with each passing second. Panic surged through me as I looked for a place to hide. I slipped into a closet, closing the door just enough to leave a crack to see through. The footsteps stopped right outside the room. My heart pounded in my chest as I held my breath, waiting. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. It was a man, tall and thin, with a hood pulled over his head. He looked around the room, his eyes scanning every corner. I clutched the notebooks to my chest, praying he wouldn't find me. He took a few steps toward the closet, and I felt my blood run cold. But then he stopped, turning his attention to the notebook I had left on the floor. He picked it up, flipping through the pages with a twisted smile on his face. "Emily," he muttered, almost to himself. "You'll never be free from me." Terror surged through me as I realized the true extent of his obsession. This man was dangerous, and he was still looking for Emily. I had to get out of there and warn the authorities before it was too late. As he turned to leave the room, I took a deep breath and prepared to make my escape. But just as he reached the door, he paused, his head snapping back toward the closet. My heart stopped as our eyes met through the crack in the door. The real horror was just beginning, and I knew I was in grave danger. In that split second of eye contact, time seemed to freeze. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. He started to move towards the closet, and I knew I had to act quickly. With adrenaline surging through my veins, I waited until he was just a few feet away before bursting out of the closet, shoving past him with all my strength. He stumbled back, caught off guard, and I bolted for the door. My flashlight clattered to the floor, but I didn't dare stop to pick it up. I sprinted down the dark hallway, the sound of his footsteps close behind. Panic gripped me as I navigated the maze-like corridors of the abandoned building, desperately searching for an exit. I could hear him gaining on me, his breathing heavy and menacing. Every door I tried was either locked or led to another dead-end room. I felt like a rat trapped in a maze with no way out. Finally, I spotted a staircase leading down to what I hoped was the ground floor. I took the steps two at a time, almost losing my footing in my haste. At the bottom of the stairs, I found a door that looked like it led outside. I grabbed the handle, praying it wasn't locked. It swung open with a creak, and I burst out into the cold night air. I didn't stop running until I reached the well-lit main campus, my lungs burning and my legs aching. I stumbled into the nearest building, which happened to be the library, and collapsed in a heap, gasping for breath. The few students still there at that late hour stared at me in confusion and concern. I managed to choke out a few words, telling them to call campus security. Moments later, the officers arrived, and I frantically explained what had happened. They escorted me back to the dorm while others went to search the abandoned building. I handed over the notebooks, telling them everything I had discovered about Emily's stalker. Back in the safety of my dorm room, I collapsed on my bed, exhausted and terrified. Emily's side of the room seemed even more haunting now, a reminder of the nightmare she had endured. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even with campus security patrolling outside. The next day, the police intensified their investigation, but there was still no sign of Emily or the man who had been stalking her. The media caught wind of the story, and soon the entire campus was on edge. Rumors and theories spread like wildfire, each one more outlandish than the last. Despite the increased security, I couldn't bring myself to feel safe. I jumped at every shadow, flinched at every unexpected noise. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by constant vigilance. I was determined to find Emily and bring her back, but I knew I couldn't do it alone. I started to piece together the information I had gathered, trying to form a coherent picture of what had happened. The cryptic emails, the detailed notes, the obsessive behavior, it all pointed to someone with a dangerous fixation on Emily. But who was he, and why had he targeted her? As I delved deeper into Emily's past, I discovered something that sent chills down my spine. There had been another girl, a few years before, who had disappeared under similar circumstances. She had been a student at Oakwood, living in the same dorm. Her case had never been solved, and she had eventually been presumed dead. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't an isolated incident. The same stalker had been operating for years, preying on students, and he had perfected his methods. Emily's disappearance was just the latest in a series of sinister events. I knew I had to act fast. I reached out to the police with my findings, urging them to reopen the old case and look for connections. I also started to gather a small group of friends and allies, people I could trust to help me in my search for Emily. We began to investigate every lead, no matter how small, hoping to find a clue that would break the case wide open. Days turned into weeks, and the trail seemed to grow colder with each passing day. But I refused to give up. I was haunted by Emily's last words in the video, "Please don't stop looking for me." I owed it to her to keep searching, no matter the cost. Then, one night, I received an anonymous message on my phone. It was a single sentence, "I know where Emily is." The message included an address on the outskirts of town, a place I had never been before. My heart raced as I read it, torn between hope and fear. I knew it could be a trap, but I couldn't ignore the possibility that it was a genuine lead. With a mixture of trepidation and determination, I gathered my friends and set out for the address. The journey felt like a descent into the unknown, each mile bringing us closer to a confrontation with the truth. As we approached the location, a dilapidated farmhouse on the edge of a dense forest, I felt a sense of foreboding settle over me. The place was shrouded in darkness, its windows boarded up and its walls covered in ivy. We parked a safe distance away and approached cautiously, our flashlights cutting through the gloom. Inside, the air was musty and oppressive. We split up to search the rooms, calling out Emily's name in hushed voices. The house was eerily silent, as if it had been abandoned for years. Just as we were about to regroup, I heard a faint sound coming from the basement. My heart in my throat, I descended the creaky stairs, flashlight in hand. The basement was dank and dark, filled with old furniture and cobwebs. In the far corner, I saw a figure huddled on the floor, her hands bound and her face pale with fear. "Emily!" I cried, rushing to her side. She looked up, her eyes wide with relief and terror. I quickly untied her, helping her to her feet. But before we could make our escape, I heard footsteps behind me. Turning, I saw the man from the abandoned building, his eyes filled with rage. He lunged at me, but I managed to dodge his attack, pushing Emily towards the stairs. "Go!" I shouted, bracing myself for a fight. The final confrontation had begun, and I knew that only one of us would make it out of that basement alive. As Emily scrambled up the stairs, I faced the man who had caused so much fear and pain. He advanced on me with a predatory grin, relishing the opportunity to finally confront me. I backed away, trying to keep my distance, but the confined space of the basement left little room to maneuver. He lunged at me again, and I dodged to the side, grabbing an old metal pipe from the floor. With adrenaline surging through my veins, I swung it at him, connecting with his shoulder. He grunted in pain but didn't stop. His eyes burned with a manic intensity that sent chills down my spine. We circled each other in the dim light, the air thick with tension. He lunged once more, and this time, I wasn't quick enough. He tackled me to the ground, and we struggled, grappling for control. I felt his hands around my throat, squeezing with terrifying strength. Gasping for breath, I used every ounce of my strength to fight back. I managed to bring my knee up, striking him in the stomach. He loosened his grip just enough for me to push him off. I scrambled to my feet, clutching the pipe, ready to defend myself. Suddenly, the basement door burst open, and Emily appeared with the police right behind her. The room was flooded with light, and the man froze, momentarily blinded. The officers rushed in, tackling him to the ground and securing him in handcuffs. As they hauled him away, I collapsed to the floor, shaking with relief. Emily rushed to my side, and we embraced, tears streaming down our faces. We had made it out alive, but the ordeal had left us both scarred. In the days that followed, the campus slowly returned to normal, though the shadow of what had happened lingered. The police investigation revealed that the man had been responsible for several disappearances over the years, his obsession with certain students driving him to horrific lengths. Emily and I gave our statements, providing the crucial evidence that finally put an end to his reign of terror. Emily's recovery was slow but steady. With the support of her family and friends, she began to rebuild her life, no longer living in constant fear. As for me, the experience had changed me profoundly. I had faced true evil and survived, and I was determined to make sure nothing like this ever happened again. We became closer than ever, bonded by the trauma we had endured. We joined a campus safety initiative, working to raise awareness about the dangers of stalking and the importance of reporting suspicious behavior. Our story served as a powerful reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, and the strength it takes to confront it. In the end, the sinister secret behind Emily's disappearance had been uncovered, and justice had been served. But the memory of that night, the terror we had faced, would stay with us forever, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unbreakable bond of friendship.